Hi, and welcome to Journey Forward with Jory Rose, where you will gain insights, tools, and inspiration to get unstuck and live your best life. Jory is a licensed marriage and family therapist with a passion for helping people cultivate awareness and authenticity so they can show up fully in all aspects of their life. And now, here's Jory.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for tuning into Journey Forward with Jory Rose today. I'm really excited to talk to today's guest, Stacy Tuschl, who is going to be sharing so much wonderful wisdom that I just want to dive right in. Stacy, introduce us to our listeners and tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey, and how is it you show up in the world?
Hi, Jory. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. So basically a little bit background of myself. I am a mom of two. I have a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old little girl. I'm also an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur right out of high school. I've never had a real job before. I just went right into my business. I own 2 performing arts academies here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I, on top of that, am a small business coach as well. Married to my husband, Kent, for the last almost 13 years. And we actually work together now in the business. So it's definitely a family business and lots going on, lots to balance. And that's usually one of my biggest passions is just share, how do we get it all done? How do we get it done in a way that doesn't stress us out as much as it has been? Or how do we start to go, okay, it's okay that I'm not done with my work day today, but I'm going to end anyway. And I'm going to come back tomorrow so I can enjoy time with my family.
Oh, there's so much just right off the bat. I'm a mom of 2 daughters, so mine are a bit older. I'm in the teenage years, and it's such a cliche to say how fast it goes by, which is why it's so hard as moms and as entrepreneurs that we make sure we have that life balance.
Yes, for sure.
How did you go from performing art studios to becoming a small business coach? What was that journey like for you?
Yeah. So I owned my studios at the time for, I think already almost 15 years. And naturally what was happening was people would start saying, hey, can I pick your brain? Can I take you to lunch? How come you guys are always so busy? I see your parking lot so full, like fill me in. So it was just naturally, I think the hard work and the dedication we were pouring into the business, you could start to see it. We were growing year after year. Even in 2008, when we had like the big recession, people were closing their doors and we were building $1 million custom dance studio for our kids. So people were like, wait a minute, like, I feel like we're missing something here. What is happening?
What's the secret sauce you have, Stacy, that they didn't have and they wanted?
Yeah, so absolutely. So I just basically started to, for free, let people take me out to Starbucks and get coffee. And then I'm like, I don't know, this is fun. I like it. They seem to be getting good value out of it. Maybe I could do this. And about 5 or 6 years ago, I decided, okay, I'm going to start coaching other people. And really, yes, I teach people how to make money, but my true passion is how do we get that more well-balanced life? Like, I think people come to me because they know I'm a mom. So they're like, can you help me do both? Because it feels like it's one or the other.
Right. So before we get to how did you get to coaching others, how did you figure that balance out for yourself? Because I mean, as a therapist, I work, the majority of my clients are women. Majority of those are moms. And this is a consistent challenge that women and mothers have is there's not enough hours in the day. The to-do list is never going away. Our self-care generally does not make it to that to-do list. And yet we always feel stressed, overwhelmed, anxious, and just we're on that hamster wheel. And that's one of my passions. And I'm not saying I do it perfect because I'm still human after all, but I kind of get the same thing you get of, oh my God, Jory, you have so much on your plate. How do you do it?
Yeah.
And I know what I do, but how did you figure out how to get it all done and actually be able to breathe? Or maybe you weren't able to breathe throughout the process. How were you able to actually get through the day and still be present for your husband and for your daughters? And then most importantly, right, for yourself.
Yeah. So I think a lot of times when you look at somebody who has it all together, and I'm gonna do air quotes there,
Yeah.
they had to do it wrong in order to figure out how to do it
Yes.
right. Right. And really there's two people. There are people that are faking having it all together and they still don't have it all together. And then the other person who actually somewhat has it together had to go through the really hard struggle of not having it to figure this out. Right. I am definitely the person who
you said that. Can I just interrupt for a second? I love that
Yeah.
you acknowledge that there's the people who just kind of fake it.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones who ruin it for so much of us, who make us feel so bad about ourselves. That's the image we see on social media, right? That activates our own inner critic to think, what's wrong with me?
Mm-hmm.
And we don't recognize, wait, maybe they actually don't have all their shit together. Maybe they're just, trying to fake it till they make it, and they're unhealthy, or they don't sleep, or they've got autoimmune disease, or they've got anxiety. So I just want to point that out because I don't think it's said often enough, especially in the entrepreneurial world, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And, sometimes people are faking it because they want to have that perception and they're doing it maliciously, or they're doing it in a way to feel better about themselves. But sometimes they're just going through a struggle and they're hiding because they don't want you to see what's really going on. So they overcompensate. So you just never know what people are going through or why they're doing that. You can only be cautious of what you're doing and how you want
100%.
The world to see and perceive you. So I think for me, one of the biggest stories that I remember was on my wedding day, getting a phone call and knowing this is my business line being transferred to me. And I need to take this phone call. And I'm wearing my wedding dress. Yes, this was before I got married. So I'm in my bridal suite with my bridesmaids. Phone is ringing. And I'm thinking, I should answer this. What if it's a new customer? What if this could be what if I don't answer it and then they call my competitor and I lose them?
The big one.
Yeah, right. What if, right? Always. So I take the call. It wasn't even like a new person. It was somebody who's like, oh, my credit card's going to expire. I want to update it. Like something I should not have taken, did not need. But it was like one of these moments of like, what am I doing? Like, why am I letting this even interrupt one of the most important days of my life?
Yes.
Right. And I think for me, there are many stories like that, though you would hope that would be like the changing moment that I completely stopped doing all of this. And no, it's like, there's so many things. Sometimes these things have to become patterns. They have to become, the new normal of I can't do this anymore. But for me, it was really just realizing this is never going to end. I will never hit the journey. I will never hit the end game here. So the hard part is realizing, okay, well, that means that if I have, 5 hours to work today, 6 hours, 3 hours, an hour, well, then what do I do to shut off? How do I wrap up my day and know that it's good enough for today? And that has been, it's difficult, even as a mom. Like there are so many things. If I looked around my house right now that I'm like, I want to get to. I want to purge my kids' closet because it's springtime and I want to get all the winter clothes. Like there's so many things to do, but I also want to enjoy the weekend and I want to hang out with my kids on Saturday. We were here in Wisconsin. It finally hit 80s this weekend. And I was like,
oh, beautiful.
But hanging out outside. And you know what? That means, I'm a little behind on what I wanted to get done this weekend, but that's okay.
Well, and one of the things that I always think about is that to-do list is really kind of arbitrary. No one said we have to do it.
Yeah.
And so we have that voice inside of our minds that says, you should do this, you should do that. And we forget that is still our own voice inside there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And yet it's the version of ourselves that maybe is not super aligned with our values. Because this is one of the areas that I find my clients help with that balance is being values driven. What's the higher value here? And the hard part is even being values driven, you're going to have competing values. So you've got the value of a clean, organized home, which is a great value, but you've also got the value of family time and you've got the value of healthy outdoor weather activities, right?
Yeah.
And they're all equally important to you, but at times you got to figure out, okay, which one's going to take center stage here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's funny is I remember one time working with a coach myself and being really upset that I didn't hit a goal. And he was like, but wait a minute, you picked that goal. You picked it out of nowhere. You literally just picked a goal, a number out of nowhere and put it on paper. You didn't hit it. And now you're upset with yourself, right? It's like we do these things to ourselves all the time, right? We decided April 1st was the weekend I was supposed to do this, or every June I'm going to, right? And then we don't get it. And now we're so upset that we're behind when maybe you're right where you need to be. Maybe this is exactly where you're supposed to be today.
You know, I shared this before on the podcast, but it feels relevant to share again now. When I was first beginning my business, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago, my ex-husband used to say to me, what are your goals? And being a heart-centered entrepreneur, you know, as a therapist and mindfulness and meditation teacher, I really struggled with the word goals because to me, it was too much of a focus on some future outcome. And as I focused on that future outcome, it often took me out of my present moment activity or intention or mindset. So we would have this playful argument around, I don't have goals, I have intentions. And the intentions allowed me to shift that route marker based on where I was at, to check in to say, is that goal realistic?
Yeah.
I recently just did a launch of a course and I had a goal of a start date. And I didn't hit my numbers of how many people I wanted in the course. And I thought, just like you said, but wait, I picked that goal. I can change it. I ended up pushing it off 1 week. I ended up filling the course to my intention of the number of people. But it takes a self-awareness, right? To check in, to even recognize I created this, I can change that.
So good. Yeah. I think self-awareness is one of the biggest things that truly can help you get to where you want to go and to also help you be okay with exactly where you are.
Yes. So on that day of your wedding, you picked up the phone call. It was not even the big breakthrough client.
Right.
What was the story you told yourself afterwards? Were you mad at yourself? Like, how did you manage that? And how long did it take to actually implement a new pattern?
That's a great question. So, and I normally talk about the story before, like, how did I get there? Like, why did I think to do that? But to ask like what happened after, I love this. So I think the story I told myself was like, I can't do this alone anymore. Like to me, it was like control freak of everything. Like I must do it. No one cares about this as much as I do. Every time I try to delegate, it's just not working or people drop the ball. So I'm the only person I can trust.
Yep.
And really the shift was, nope, like doesn't even matter if somebody can do this, not even as well as I can. I just can't be the only one doing all of this anymore. I came home, I immediately started delegating and hiring for sure.
And that's not an easy thing to do, letting go of that control. It takes a great amount of trust in both yourself, right? That I'm making the right choices, and then trust in the people that you are delegating to. Where did you get stuck in that? Or was it, I mean, I'm imagining it wasn't just an easy as a snap of the fingers and delegate. So what did that actually look like? Because no matter what we're doing in our lives, again, as whether we're entrepreneurs or just as moms, we have to ask for help.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of reasons we don't do that first.
Yeah. So at that time, I already had a few people working with me. However, it was like, why? It's kind of like, why would you hire a cleaning company to clean your house? But then like, before they get here, you're cleaning everything. You know what I mean? Like, why would you do that? That's what I was doing. I was hiring people, but I was like doing their job for them.
Yeah.
And I realized, okay, how do I start to become a better leader? How do I start to let go of this control, but be happy with the outcomes? So I think it was a lot of lack of leadership on my end, of not setting clear expectations, maybe not giving them the time and energy that they needed to really thrive.
Yeah.
Right. We do this like right now. I have a puppy. Oh man.
Aww.
COVID.
What kind of puppy? How old?
Oh my goodness. So he's 4 months. He's a medium Labradoodle, and a whole lot of energy and things I had not had to get used to. And
I have a 1.5-year-old mini golden doodle. So I feel
so
you,
I should have called you up before I decided to make this decision. But the point here is, like, they flat out say what you put into your puppy is who he's going to become. So you can either be this control freak and get mad when they go to the bathroom in the living room, right? Or you can put any time and energy to train to get the outcomes you're looking for the next maybe 15 years, right? And a lot of times we think I'm too busy to do that. I don't have time to train, to implement, to allow help. But you can either do it now temporarily, or you can be stuck with what you've just done to yourself for the next however long this decision takes, right? Whether we're talking puppies or employees or anything. Or children. Right? 100%. So it's like, to me, I might not have time either, but I am making the time to figure this out so that this is a better experience for both of us.
I'm going to stick with this puppy analogy for a few seconds because I think it's so brilliant. And I used to use a puppy analogy before I even ever had a dog. Okay. But you are 100% right, because I think it's the mindset shift from this external locus of focus versus internal, right? I'll be happy when these things out there change versus what can I do internally to create the change?
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely.
And you know, to your point, when I teach mindfulness, people often have a misperception that mindfulness is something you add to your to-do list. Now, meditation is something you add to your to-do list, but mindfulness is a way of being. It's a quality of presence, right? It's how you show up moment to moment. Mm-hmm. So people will say to me, I don't have time to be mindful. And I'm like, do you have time to be stressed? Because that's already showing up. So let's learn a new way of responding to that stress or anxiety or overwhelm or fear or whatever the emotion is. Mm-hmm. But you're 100% right. We keep thinking, oh, it's the dog's fault.
Yeah.
This isn't happening.
Yeah. The dog stole my morning routine. Like that was my first thing. I'm like, well, how did this happen? I had no idea my morning routine was out the window. Right. And now I'm like, well, no, this is just our new routine and our new normal. And how do I figure this out together with him so we're both successful?
Well, and when it comes to parenting, I read a quote once when I was pregnant with my oldest daughter, and it was from the actor John Leguizamo. And it said, the goal of parenting is to raise well-adjusted, secure adults. A happy childhood is a bonus. Mm. And so many parents have that backwards. They want to give their kids everything. Yes. And then when they become teenagers, they're like, wait, what the hell happened? I have no control here. Mm-hmm. And I teach a lot of parenting work as well. And so this very conscious parenting proactivity towards being the leader and the captain of the ship, so to speak, or right, being the leadership of the home and letting your kids know I'm in control. And the more control, and I don't mean control in a punitive sort of way, but presence, right? Leadership, guiding. The more you give that when they're young, it's easier as they get older versus the inverse. And so this same concept, I think, can apply to our own internal dialogue, our family, our businesses, our mental health. It's a really powerful reminder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think too, even looking at your relationships, right? What you put into them is what will happen long-term, right? So I think you have to just keep asking, like, what is important to you and what do you want to stay important and relevant and still here today?
100%. So then you became a coach.
Yeah.
How did you really make that bridge? Because it feels like a very different business model, but it felt like along the way you were learning this wisdom that people were already tuning into you around.
Yeah.
And wanted to be able to harness from you.
Yeah. So looking back, it feels so natural. So I was always in charge. I was always a captain, a leader, kind of just the bossy child. You know what I mean? And whatever I was a part of, I was always quickly becoming the leader of that specific thing. So I think naturally I had like that, and I was a dance teacher, right? So I was already teaching in general.
Sure.
So I think for me, I had that teacher instinct. And when people would ask me questions, I would jump into that role of, oh, let me help you. Let me guide you. Yeah. Right. So as people started to ask more questions and I was able to start to see I was really helping them and wow, they're asking me this. And I think the biggest takeaway was if my first person ever, I'll never forget, was a karate studio. And I was like, well, that makes sense. Like we both serve children. So okay, like dance,
Yeah.
karate makes sense. And then I had one of my dance moms opened up a chocolate shop and she wanted advice. And I'm like, I know I love chocolate, but that's about all I can tell you about chocolate. I have no idea I don't do any of this. This is retail. This is nothing. And she was like, no, literally you have so much stuff that I can already tell from the studio that would help me. Could you work? So I'm like, okay. So I did. I'm like, okay, wow, she likes this. The biggest thing for me, I think one of the biggest hurdles, because I did have this mindset stuck, like I was stuck in the idea of like, but who am I? Like who am I to
a little
teach
bit of an
this
imposter
person?
syndrome there?
For sure.
Well, I would also interject too, that you were believing your focus was on teaching dance.
Yeah.
Versus looking at the bigger umbrella of what am I actually doing?
Mm-hmm.
Teaching dance is what it was looking like, but what you were doing was so much more. And that's what people were asking your
100%. Yes. And I think the biggest aha moment for me was this third person who was my friend's husband. And he was a doctor that was going to open a med spa. In my mind, I'm thinking, but he's a doctor. He's smarter than me. Like, how could I ever help him? And really, again, it was like that third time of sitting down and somebody being like, no, I don't understand any of this. You're speaking a foreign language to me. Thank you for breaking this down. This is so helpful. So after those three people, I immediately said, okay, I am really helping no matter who they are, what their background is. I know stuff and I know how to break it down in a simple way, and I'm saving them time and money. And I'm like, don't buy this and don't waste your time with this and make sure you do that. And pretty soon it was like, okay, time to really do this. And now I didn't care who I was specifically helping because I knew I could just help.
Well, it's not about, it's not about the product. It's about the process.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. And that's what you were helping them understand. So what were some of the things that, because it wasn't about the product, that you feel you really discovered along the way of what helps make people create whatever it is they're creating, whether it's a business or a hobby, or because I imagine there's a lot of similar themes
definitely
that are going to go along the way if it's even just not for an entrepreneur. What were some of the things that you really saw as roadblocks or things that people were missing as successes?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing people were missing is the vision. What do you want this to look like? Right. So when they would come to me and they would ask me questions, I'm like, wait, where are we going first? What are we trying to do? What are we trying to create? And sometimes they'd be like, oh, I don't really know. And I'm like, listen, if you don't know, this is going to be a really messy plan of action, right? If we don't know what we're trying to accomplish in the end, I don't know where we're going to be, right? So we've got to get really clear on what do you know you want, or what can we at least put down on paper as our first draft of what we think maybe this could be. And I think that was the biggest aha, was they didn't even know to set that plan or intention for themselves. And you know what that's like without that intention, right?
Oh, it's so overwhelming, right?
Yes.
It just feels like a winding, twisting road. You're never going to get to the destination.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was the big one. It was just like, okay, what is the vision? And then how do we really reverse engineer how we're going to get there, but then baby step it? Because when we say vision, now you're thinking end of the journey, beautiful picture of what this is going to look like. And it might be 20 years away. And a lot of people cannot see how they're ever going to get from A to B when there's this massive gap in the middle.
So what would you guide them in how to not freak out that the destination felt 20 potentially years away, and what to do with that gap?
So I think the biggest thing is like, what are your first like baby steps to get there? Right. So I'm a big believer in, well, what could you do today to get there? What could you start doing today? And they're like, well, I don't get it because this is such a big thing. It's going to take me 90 days. I'm like, to do this one activity. I'm like, well, yes, but if this is how we're breaking it down, how does the ball start rolling today? Do you have to make the phone call to figure out where you're going to have the space? Or do you need to call your boss to see if you can take half days on Fridays? Like, what is the thing we need to do to get the ball rolling? And those baby steps are what really give you momentum to keep it going, versus the big, massive intention or goal can paralyze you sometimes.
Absolutely. You know, oftentimes, and people see those roadblocks as things to just stop them. One of the things that I've often said to my clients over the years is, what if the roadblock is really just a speed bump? And if we perceive it as a roadblock, we're just going to stop.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh, you know what? This is too hard. Maybe I'm just not meant to do this. Maybe this just wasn't meant to be. maybe I'm not good enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it sounds like with your guidance, you're able to help them see either what are those mindsets getting in the way, because it's my belief so often that fear of not knowing what to do next is stuck in old narratives and old belief systems or old mindsets. Or one of the things I'll ask my clients is, whose voice is that you're hearing telling you this? Because it's often not theirs. Maybe it's their mother or their father or their partner or a teacher that kind of shut them down, in which they internalize that belief. So just having someone supportive to guide them, it's so simple and yet not easy to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I love that idea of the speed bump, because I think people have this unrealistic expectation. I think we have it for so many categories and areas in our life, that when we confuse hard with it's not working. It's like, no.
Yes.
This is just part of it. This is part of, it is difficult. No, this is not going to be easy to drop those last 10 pounds. No, this is not going to be easy to start your first business. Like, no, this is not going to be easy to have a difficult conversation with your mother-in-law that you've been wanting to have, right? Like, this is just part of the process, and really getting through it and not letting it stop you is the biggest thing.
I love that so much, Stacy. It's not that that belief of we think it's just not working. I'll often, say to people too, it's not try harder, it's try different. Because we oftentimes will keep doing the same thing over and over and over, and then being like, look, it must just be me. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe this isn't a worthwhile cause that I'm working towards. And again, we just need someone to kind of help guide us out of those old mindsets, those roadblocks. So what are some of the next things that you do in working with people outside of, what's your vision? What are some of the things that you really feel create some big shifts with the people you work with that our listeners could really benefit from, regardless of where they're at in their lives right now?
So I think the biggest thing is to just to move, to try new things, to put yourself out there. If you're looking for a new hobby, you don't figure that out by sitting at home thinking about the hobby, right?
Yes.
Go try tennis, go try golf, go try swimming, go try painting, right? The more you try, the more you'll get feedback. So, and sometimes no feedback is feedback. And that's what people have to remember. So you might think, well, I'm going to see if anybody wants to do, maybe you want to be the painter and you want to teach it. So you put out there that you're going to start painting lessons and no one responded. Well, first, did you post it more than once? Because like one time and you're done does not make a good marketing strategy. But second, maybe you're putting things out there that people really aren't interested in. Maybe the no feedback is they don't want this from you right now. So maybe try something else.
Yeah. And I think too, we often get in our own way of the messaging around it. Because maybe they do want the painting class, but you haven't presented it in the right way. So let's try different ways of getting the message out there. I know as an entrepreneur, that's something that keeps me stuck in having built and continuing to grow and build my online community. I know what I mean when I say what I'm talking about, but it may not be what resonates. It's hard to get out of our own head and begin to get curious of what's going to truly resonate with the person I'm trying to connect with.
Yeah. One of the examples I give in my book is about, imagine if you're in a ditch, your car slips into the ditch. How would you get out of the ditch? Right? Well, you would go forwards and backwards and turn your wheel and then try going forward again and backwards again. You would continue to try to get out of the rut, right? Like that's what you're trying to do. Now, you don't get out of the ditch by sitting in the car, not doing anything. You get in there
by sitting there screaming, I can't get out.
Right. Well, and maybe that is the strategy. Maybe it's somebody help me. But the problem is sometimes I think people get so comfortable just sitting, not doing anything that they allow it. So now you have the neighbor that walks by and says, hey, let me help you. Let me get my tow truck. Let me, pull up my hitch. And then what happens is people start to say, no, that's okay. I'm comfortable here. Like, no. Like people are offering you guidance, offering you support. And when you start to be like, no, I'm good. Or you're like, well, thanks, but I'm just going to keep complaining that I'm stuck. Right.
Yes.
All of a sudden you start to turn off maybe some friends that have been trying to support you, but you're not lit. Or, I think of a story of like a friend who wouldn't break up with the horrible boyfriend. And we would just tell her over and over and over. And then pretty soon it was like, we all just said, just stop telling her because she's not going to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
No.
So you don't want to be the friend in the ditch while all the other friends are trying to help you. And you're just like, sorry, not happening. So who's trying to walk by right now? Who do you have that is here to really help? Whether that's a coach, a mentor, a friend, a peer, an acquaintance, right? Just be careful that you're not saying no, thank you when it's the perfect person to be walking by at the very moment.
I love that example so much, partly because it's a beautiful visual, and I love visuals for driving in points. I think they're easier to remember than just, a word about something. And it's so clear. And yet it's so common occurrence. And this is something that, I talk about all the time in my work, is getting unstuck. And why don't we get unstuck when we clearly know we're stuck? And part of it, you nailed it 100% from what I see, is it's comfortable. Yeah. We know what it looks like. It's familiar. That getting unstuck is really what we want, but that's an unknown. And oftentimes the unknown is scarier and perceived to be scarier and perceived to be harder than it is to actually be stuck.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But at some point, there's that turning point where you're like, okay, I just can't do this anymore. And now either perhaps I've shooed away all the people who were there to help, and I've got to figure out, oh crap, I just pushed away all that support, or maybe they're still there. But as I always say, you can't change what you're not aware of. So it starts with the self-awareness, like you said earlier. Yeah. To me, awareness is, the top of the thing that we all need to be practicing. And it's a beautiful visual. I love that.
Thank you. Well, and it's too, if you have a friend who really is taking your advice and you are giving, guidance and they're doing it, you truly want to keep helping because you see that they're trying. So don't think, oh no, I don't want to get anybody's help, because what if no. If you are listening and action taking, right, based off of what they're suggesting, they're not going to be upset with you. It's the person that's like, I'm here trying to help you, but you're not listening, right? Like, I don't know how much more I can give. Those are the relationships you want to be really careful with, because those might be some really amazing influences in your life that may not be able to be there if you don't allow them in and allow them to help.
So I'd be really curious for the person stuck in the ditch to ask them, how is it serving you to stay here? How is it serving you to turn away the support that is being offered? What other messages is the universe sending to you that you're not recognizing?
What is it costing you to stay there?
So you kind of snuck in a few moments ago in my book. So tell us about your book.
Yeah. So my book is called The Implementation Code. A common question I have gotten in the last 2 decades is, how do you get everything done? Right? Like, I mean, I have several businesses. We have residential and commercial real estate. We've been landlords for over a decade. I mean, we are involved in so much stuff, and people look at us and like, I just don't get it. Like, well, there's so much behind this. There's so much stuff that we're able to do. And one of the things that people don't get and don't understand is being okay getting help from other people, whether that's personally, professionally, being able to say, yes, thank you, I love your help. And of course, paying for that help, right? We outsource a lot of things we pay for. But yeah, the book is called Implementation Code. And it's all about like, how do we get things done? How do we do it as fast and efficiently, as effectively as possible? And really, what should we not be even worrying about? How do we get things off of our plate? How do we start to say no? How do we get good at boundaries? Boundaries are a big one that when I help people really figure out what they should be doing, a lot of times it's because they have such bad boundaries or a lack of boundaries that every time we meet, there's more things on their calendar because they just say yes to everybody.
Yes. I love everything you just said. And I was even just writing those things down because there's things that it seems so obvious, but is so hard. So sometimes we need to hear this message over and over and over again to allow it to really sink in. So if, let's say, people read your book and read these tools and hear these messages, but they're just not quite sinking in yet, what would you say to those people who are like, Stacy, this sounds awesome, and yet I can't do that yet? Yet was the key word there. I put that in because I'm not sure everyone would say yet, but that's what I want to make sure people would say. So what advice would you give for those people who are like, yes, like their soul is screaming, yes, but they still aren't taking that step forward?
Yeah. I think it just shows where your priorities are currently, right? So I say to people sometimes, maybe you just don't want it bad enough. Like, why haven't you done fill in the blank? Well, because the other thing you did do was more important. So why did I not clean out my kid's closet this weekend? because my priority was pool time in the 80-degree weather. I really wanted to clean up the closet, but not as much as I wanted to lay out with my children at the pool.
Yeah.
And I think there's guilt around like, oh, no, I do want it. No, I do. It's like, but whatever you're choosing to do, you are saying it is more important. So if we were to go back and look at your calendar the last 2 weeks, I don't even need to have a conversation with you to tell you what I think you are valuing as most important.
Yeah.
Because you're showing it, whether you're like, but I didn't get to what was important last week, but it is important. Not necessarily, not as much as whatever you did that you put in front of it. So I think we have to really look at our bank accounts and our calendars and say that, in fact, is where the priorities are. And
I love that.
And again,
those are going to be clear route markers, right? That's not going to lie.
Mm-hmm.
And, I want to insert here because this is something that I talk with so many of my clients about is, so many people struggle in their relationship. And they think that either love is enough. I love him. I love her so much. And yet something's not working. Or they think we've been together so long, it's easy to become complacent because this is my partner. I don't have to really attend to the relationship very much. I tell clients all the time, you have got to schedule in both of your calendars time for non-transactional conversations, which means don't talk about the kids, the chores, the house, the to-dos. Actually schedule time to just connect, even if it's 10 minutes once a week. And I tell clients to schedule sex. And they're like, why would I put sex on my calendar? And my response is because it'll show that you value it enough to dedicate time that you are consciously creating for connecting with your partner. If we just wait for the spontaneous time to emerge, it's often not going to emerge. And then people tend to wait. Research shows wait 6 years in challenges in relationship before seeking therapy. We're not giving what's most important, the time.
Yeah.
So slight little tangent there, but I think it's so important because I think most people who are in partnership would say, my partner is, and I know balance with kids, right? But my partner is the long-term person because my kids are going to grow up and leave the house. So my partner is the most important person in my life. Great. How much time are you attending to them?
Yeah.
How are you consciously creating a space to show up, to let them know you value them? They're like, oh shit, I'm not great. Put it on the calendar.
Mm-hmm. We have date nights every Thursday. Yeah.
They think that's not sexy. No, it may not be, but it shows dedication to what your values and priorities are. So if you were to show up as one of Stacy's clients and Stacy said, look at my calendar, and you saw date night every Thursday, you would instantly be able to say your marriage is as high a value to you that you want to maintain time and attention, that in those moments, all else is going to be put to the side so I can be fully present for this. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it's those boundaries of when am I spending time with my children? When am I spending time with my husband? When are our vacations to unplug? Because as somebody now who works with their husband in the business, transactional conversations are all the time, right?
Yeah.
So we have to have rules of, no, it's date night. We are not speaking about the business. No, we're on vacation. We are not doing any work while we're here. We're leaving computers at home. And when are we recharging as a family? So those are all really important conversations.
I love it so much. Stacy, I could talk to you for hours. There's so many more things, but if people wanted to find out about your book, if they wanted to work with you, learn more about you, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you and find out where they can get access to all this great wisdom?
Yes. Well, Joy, thank you so much for having me. You guys can grab a copy of the book right now. It's still free. You just pay for the shipping, but the physical book you can get right away for free. It's implementationcode.co/free book. That'll be there. Otherwise, anywhere on social media, I'm at Stacy Tuschl. My podcast is called Foot Traffic. It is for the small business owners. So if that happens to be you, definitely come check it out. But if you're not a business owner, I would say Instagram's the best place where I do share a lot of personal behind the scenes stuff as well. And I'm at Stacy Tuschl.
Awesome. Stacy, thank you so much for coming on today. I loved all the things that we talked about because it applies in so many aspects of our lives. And I'm just really grateful that we were able to share this time together. So thank you for putting this on your calendar.
Yes, thank you, Dory. I appreciate it so much.
All right. Take care and be well.
To continue your journey forward, find Jory Rose on Facebook and Instagram to become part of her growing community. You can also gain access to her meditations, books, online classes, or to sign up for an upcoming retreat, visit her at joryrose.com. That's JOREEROSE.com.